And it's just like a little leaflet book. But I did a lot of research on this. It's taken a lot of years. And so last year I was speaking on it at Polishing the Pulpit, so I had to, get all this together and try and present it the best I could. The Armana letters, I don't want to say they'll blow your mind, but they'll open your eyes. And they're 67 years off dating wise at the current dates. But when you read them, you're going to say, that sounds a lot like Joshua, the book of Joshua. And the Pharaoh doesn't do a thing. He doesn't do a thing. So we'll look at that again tomorrow night. And I thank you for your attention. You guys were pretty good. I didn't hear any snoring, so that's great. Any other?
Why is it so important to know these things? Some people have a hard time knowing facts and history. Some people aren't as engaged with knowing these things. So why would you think it's important to know these things?
One, I'm not saying you have to know it, okay? I'm not saying it's not required. You can have faith. I believe the Bible without all these facts. One reason I like to present this is there is a generation that has been brought up in our schools that has been taught, you're nothing but an animal. Why do you think we have so much violence in our society? Because they think they're evolving and that it's, survival of the fittest. Why else would they do these things? Growing up, there's always been violence, but when you look at the early settlers, they all had guns. Their kids learned to shoot, but they used them for hunting. They were tools, right? They didn't go shooting each other, rare occasion. But today, it's like kids, there's just too much information. And people are telling them the Bible's not true. And it is true. And there are facts. There are things coming out that we've never had before that I want these younger generations to know before I'm gone that you can rely on the Bible, and the archaeology is getting better and better and better. When the early archaeologists were critical of Luke, who wrote the book of Acts and who wrote the book of Luke. The book of Acts, they said back in the 1800s, early 1800s, they said, the book of Acts is the most terribly written book that has ever been. It can't be viewed as a historical book. By the time the archaeologists had dug up stuff for 100 years, they're saying Luke is the most precise writer that has ever written about history. They said that Luke said that when Paul was at Iconium, that the people spoke in the Lycaonian language. And they said, there is no such language. And there's no such dialect that we've ever found. Well, guess what? They found it. And it's just a local dialect. And they had their own little dialect right there. And there it was. Don't listen to the critics because the facts are coming to light. So rest assured, no matter what some educated person is trying to tell you, rely upon the God of all wisdom, because only that book is true. And everything is coming in and lining up. And the more they dig, the more they find. There are always going to be critics. I say that in the first century, God confirmed the word by giving miracles. But those miracles that were done confirmed the word that was being taught, but then we got the Bible. And we don't really need you to, we have faith. You know what was found before the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1946? A thing called the Nag Hammadi codexes. And it was something that came up in the 3rd century. And Peter and Jude talk about this. And they're called Gnosticism, which means knowledge. And Peter spends a great deal of time discussing that. Jude spends a great deal of time. It's already happened when Jude's there. They were able to squash it, and a man named Irenaeus that lived in Gaul convinced everybody to get rid of all this trash. Well, they found a copy, in 1946, and they said, oh, there's all these new gospels. Oh, there's the book of Mary, there's the book of Judas, there's all these things that we love. And what it was, the people at the time that were Greeks coming into the church combined Greek myth into Bible and said that knowledge was more important than baptism for salvation. And if you look there at 2 Peter chapter 1, add to your knowledge gnosis, and he adds, and he goes on, he adds to your faith, virtue, and you go up the ladder, and he says, if you have all these things, then you will have the epignosis. If you go look at the Greek, perfect knowledge of God. You're not going to get to the knowledge of God just with your regular gnosis. You're going to have to add all these other Christian virtues into to becoming complete in the epignosis. Peter uses the term epignosis, precise knowledge of God, 4 times before he even gets to that list. Am I boring you yet? So anyway, that's why it's important. There's a man that's running for Senate down in Texas, and he is in a Bible class, and he uses the Nag Hammadi codexes to show that God is a non-binary figure, and that we all can just be whatever, we don't even have to be a sex anymore. We can just all do whatever we want for pleasure. And he's basing it on that ridiculous notion. Guess what God gave us in 1947? Right after that, the Dead Sea Scrolls. The oldest Old Testament document they had was 900 AD. Dead Sea Scrolls, the great Isaiah scroll, goes back to at least 150 BC, and it contains the vowels. And I've got a thing downstairs. You can scan it. You can put your finger on the text. It translates it to English, and nothing's changed. That's why we need to know some of these things. To be able to teach the younger generation, you can trust the Bible.